anyone caught that while I was live, but I'm going to go ahead and redo this. So thank you, and thank you for joining me here at American Overwatch. Um, some of you guys are probably already aware that I have been working on a project regarding global warming for about 2 weeks now, and what I found is predominantly from all of the studies in all of the scientific data that I personally looked at, not news sources. I'm talking from the sensors themselves. I plotted them on maps and things like that, and from the sensor data readings that I've gathered, global warming is probably real. Um, it seems like temperatures are climbing steadily. It does seem like greenhouse gases are climbing steadily. But there is a huge but in this where the liberal left progressive agenda would have you believe that global warming is caused by humans and human activity. They'd have you believe that the humans and their deforestation and their output by um, fossil fuel burning CO2 output is the reason why we're experiencing this global warming effect. Now, the chart that you see on the right side of your screen here lays out what gases are in our atmosphere. Now, you probably learned from middle school is that nitrogen makes up about 78% of our atmosphere. Um, is that right? 78? Yeah. And then the rest is about 21%, a little less than 21% oxygen. Um, so we're talking about CO2 here, and CO2, according to this chart, and mind you, it's a little dated. It does say it makes up about 0.04%, I want to say, which is about 300 parts per million. Now that reading was as of 2014, so it's about 5 years old. Um, Most recent readings I've seen are about 420 parts per million. So it has gone up in the last 4 years. Um, what's interesting though is I took all of the sensor data that I could get from NOAA, and I plotted them in props to Microsoft in Excel. I I aggregated all the data, 238,000 records, into Excel. I then plotted that through Excel on a global map and used a timeline and to see when, where, and how much CO2 was recorded over time. And I could see on the global map of all the dots, as they appeared over time. And what's interesting is the vast majority, and I would say, and you'll see this online, I'll post it on my website as well as in the document, but you'll see that over time, the vast majority, I would say probably about 90 to 95% of the recordings occurred over the ocean. Now, I'm conflicted about it. One side of me, the more scientific side of me, says, well, they probably want to get true readings in the atmosphere as far as away from the source as they can possibly get, because the closer to the source that you would get, the higher the readings. I hope that makes sense. If you stand right outside of a factory or a coal burning plant with your meter and you took a reading, you would get much higher carbon dioxide readings than you would in the ocean. And that's because the concentration of in the output from the source of the CO2 is you're standing right next to it. So that's one side of the house, but I've been reading consistently that there is a greenhouse gas that has 60% more effect on the global warming than any other gas, and that's H2O. I want you to think about that. H2O, water vapor. So water vapor actually makes up. I'm gonna have to stick my face in here now. Water vapor makes up about 2.5% of the atmosphere, which is a considerable amount more than carbon dioxide, and about 25,000 parts per million, which is a lot more than 420 parts per million. So if water vapor makes up a vast or far more than makes up far more than CO2 does in our atmosphere, and we have this global warming effect, and you understand the cycle of precipitation, as the earth warms, as temperatures rise, so does evaporation. And then we get more water vapor in the air, which then in turn turns into precipitation and falls back down to the earth. So as the earth warms, there's more water vapor and it becomes more cyclical. You understand what I'm saying? So I believe that there's a lot more that has to be done in the area of studying this phenomenon where the earth is warming and it's creating more water vapor, and that water vapor then returns to the earth in the form of precipitation. And there's also charts on the National Weather Service, and I'll post all this in my document, where it shows water temperatures are climbing. And if water temperatures are climbing, so is water evaporation. Water evaporation occurs at a faster rate when temperatures rise. So why are all the readings, why are 95% of the readings being taken over the oceans, over the Pacific Oceans, the Atlantic Oceans, in the Sea of Japan and all that? It's very, very interesting to me that they would take 90 to 95% of the readings over bodies of water. And the only plausible explanation for me is that they don't want to get the readings right next to the source of the CO2. They want to get true readings from the atmosphere, as far as away from any output, any sources of the CO2 as they can, to get those accurate, true readings in the atmosphere. And that makes sense to me. But it also makes sense to me that those sensors are also monitoring water temperature, and are also monitoring water, sea level rises, and these sensors do a multitude of other things. They're not just monitoring CO2. And I'm here to tell you that I believe that global warming is probably real, and it has nothing to do with the human activity, such as deforestation, although it does affect it. Yes, it does. It does contribute to it, but it is not the leading cause of global warming. In fact, I think it's a phenomenon that's happening right now that we don't quite grasp the concept of, where it's the cyclical precipitation. So basically, the earth is warming, the water is evaporating, it creates more H2O, water vapor in the atmosphere, and then in turn, the earth gets warmer. So that's where we're at right now, and that's where a lot of my studies have starting to lead me to. That's not to say that some of the graphs that I've seen both indicate in parallel the rise in temperature and the rise in CO2. So there's that, but I haven't found a graph that graphs out the amount of water vapor. And I bet you that if you put that side by side, it would also show you the same climb. So with that being said, please look forward to the report that's probably going to come out, hopefully by the end of the week. What is it, Thursday now? Maybe early next week. Still got a lot to do. Still got a lot of annotations I got to do on this this video. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me here at American Overwatch, and we'll see you on the next one.